Hello, everybody. For some reason, my countdown didn't work today, but here we go. So, happy days. It's Wednesday, 9 p.m. here in Ireland, in the UK, 10 p.m. in France. So, we are having one more spiritual light. And today we have a special guest, our friend Rafael Caldas. Thank you, Rafael, for your availability to help us with today's conversation here.
My
And
pleasure.
thank you. And today's topic is the actions of the spirits upon the fluids. It's a very interesting topic, a very, I would say, tricky one because there are we still have a lot of spiritists which do not understand this relationship, the concepts of these fluids. But hopefully, today we will iron out all these doubts. Okay, so let's go to the introductions here. So let's start with our guest, Rafael. Please welcome.
Thank you. Muito obrigado, Stevan. Sou meu nome é Rafael Caldas, eu estou aqui falando direto do UK. Faço parte do grupo Spirit Society of London. E é um prazer estar aqui com vocês mais uma vez, conversando sobre esse tópico que é tão todo dia, né? Tão presente no nosso dia a dia. Então, super feliz de poder participar. Hello, everyone. And for the ones that have seen me before, hi again. My name is Rafael Caldas. I'm part of the Spirit Society of London here in the UK. And I am super happy to talk about this topic, which is so relevant for our everyday lives. And to just go about without even realizing or noticing it. So it's an honor to be here with all of you. So thank you.
Thank you, Rafael. Ms. Gibbons.
Hello. Good
You look
evening, everyone. Once again, we are together, which is a blessing in itself, to talk about something very important in the spirituality, which, as Rafael said, is very important for all of us, the subject. And it's really a pleasure and honor to be here with you. And so we have going to have a really good meeting. So,
yes.
boa tarde a todos que estão nos ouvindo. Um prazer estar com vocês novamente nesse um assunto muito importante que nós vamos tratar hoje. E espero que nós vamos ter uma reunião muito boa. Bem-vindos e que Deus nos abençoe a todos.
Amém. Bonne nuit, Charles.
Bonsoir Steven, bonsoir à tous, très heureux d'être à nouveau parmi vous ce soir pour parler des fluides aujourd'hui. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening everyone, good evening Camille, who is already sending comments on the chat.
Yeah.
Very happy to be here with you this evening to talk about fluids, and indeed it's a surprising but interesting subject.
Yes. Okay. So, as we always do here, let me share my screen and we will be a short connect with today.
We have always practiced an integrated type of medicine incorporated to our specialty until we had an event in our lives that was transformative, in which our son passed away in an accident in 2005. And since then, we have received several communications from him that led to the publication of 8 books. That transformed our views in the way we practice medicine. And although we are already away from the traditional allopathic practice, we attempted to open up to a different perspective. And
all medical training is very focused on science, and specifically as a surgeon, it's technique, it's advances, it's technology, and really pushes you away from all that thinking. You just want to become the best instrumentalist you can, perform the most complicated things and be the quote unquote smarter you can be. But once you get into practice, and that's when it opened to me, is that at the end is that human being that we ended up forgetting that there's a human being, and it's not a disease, and it's not an organ. And when you start having that interaction, I felt, to me at least, there was something missing. And that's when I kind of came back to my spirit roots and apply this on a daily basis now.
Most of the founders of modern science were deeply spiritually motivated to generate science, like Francis Bacon, Robert Boyle, Kepler, Giordano Bruno, all of them, Isaac Newton, all of them were deeply spiritually motivated to understand the creation. And understanding the creation, they thought they would understand the creator. So there are many interesting and complex relationships between spirituality and science. My interest in spirituality, in trying to understand mind, in trying to understand human nature, played an important role in my in choosing psychiatry as my specialty to dedicate my life to that.
a few factors are important: humility, listening more to your patients, empathy, remaining open to our own spiritual influences, and allowing our patients' spiritual influences to also interact. And that gives us a complete different perspective of what we do.
Yeah. Okay. So, let me give my introduction to, and this coming Kardec, and we can find this in the Genesis book, chapter 14. The act of spirits on the spirit of has consequences of capital and direct importance for incarnates. Since these fluids are of thought and can modify their properties, it is evident that they must be coordinated with the good or bad qualities of the thoughts that make them vibrate, modify themselves by the purity or impurity of the feelings. Bad thoughts corrupt the spiritual fluids, as deleterious miasmas corrupt the breathable air. The fluids surrounding the bad spirits, or that they project, are, therefore, vitiated, while those that receive the influence of the good spirits are as pure as their degree of moral perfection allows. So, today we will kind of understand a little bit what's the influences, how they connect these influences with ourselves, and if you have any questions, please put in our comment box, and we can do the comment. We can read it here and make yourself a little clear on this topic. So, as Charlie said, good evening, Camille. Good evening, Marco. Good to have you all with us today. And in order to start, let's go to Charles. And Charles, can you talk more about what are those fluids, how they are formed, how they are where they were created?
Ah, good, good question. I think it will be a challenge to answer in a reasonable time, but okay, let's try. First, about the word fluid itself. Fluid today is a word that is used like for fluid mechanics, for instance, for liquids and gases, for example. Okay, but at the time of Kardec, the word fluid had a broader meaning. For instance, at that time, the nature of the electricity or of the magnetism, like a magnet, for instance, was not known. So the scientists were talking about the electrical fluid to explain the electricity, and the magnetic fluid in order to explain the magnets, the electromagnetic. So in the meantime, the science has evolved, and today we talk about electric field or electromagnetic field, and we know the electricity is the result of some free electrons in the conductor materials which are traveling and then leaving, creating a current, DC or AC, which is explaining what the electricity is. So this electrical and magnetic fluid has been replaced by electrical field or magnetic field. Nevertheless, Kardec has then used this word fluid in that broader meaning, which means somehow agent, or the force which is moving something as an agent. So we know also from the Spiritist teachings, the spirits at the beginning, when Kardec was asking, okay, what is matter? What are the spirits made of? And so on. The spirits had answered, and I think we talked about it already in a past live of the spiritual light, about the universal cosmic fluid. Okay, so you see, it's a fluid, universal cosmic fluid, which is how to say, as the word indicates, universal. It is somehow part of the creation, available everywhere, and capable of several transformations. Okay, so it can exist in its pure universal cosmic fluid state, but then it can also transform itself and condense itself. For instance, the spirits tell clearly it is the agent of the universal attraction. So why does the Earth and the Moon attract themselves? We know perfectly the laws from Newton, and even better from Einstein, but nobody has never explained where is the rope or the elastic or the particle, the graviton particle. Nobody has ever identified it. So the spirits very clearly, and long before, in 1857 already, explained that this attractive force is one of the property of the transformation of the universal cosmic fluid. Same for electricity, same for magnetic field, and so on. So second thing that the spirits are explaining is our matter, dense matter, so the particles, electrons, protons, neutrons, and so on, are also formed by a dense condensation of the universal cosmic fluid. Okay, when it is in its highest density state, it is what's the so-called tangible matter. Okay, but they also always claim that this is not the only form of condensation of the universal cosmic fluid. There are a lot of intermediary condensations, more or less, depending where you are, of this fluid. So forming, how to say, like we know also that we have a spiritual body, the so-called perispirit by Kardec. It is also formed aggregating this universal cosmic fluid. And in the spiritual world, it has a reality for the spirits. maybe some of you have seen the movie No Solar. You can see there are cities, including with walls that no other spirit can go through the wall. And so it is really a tangible reality, but for the spirit. Let's assume, for instance, that a plane or a rocket goes material one through No Solar. It will not perceive anything because it's not in the same state of the matter. Okay, so the fluids we are talking about, Kardec is talking about in this section 14 of the Genesis, which is really the Bible of Kardec's writing about the fluids. Is these more spiritual fluids, because the matter is studied by physics or by chemistry or whatever, by the science we know. So the focus, main focus of Spiritism was to study this, how to say, spiritual fluids or ethereal or less dense fluids, non-tangible, non-Einsteinian, or we can also say not in our 4 dimensions of 3 for space, 1 for time, something which is in the spiritual worlds, which means in some additional dimensions. All this still has to be conceptualized by science, okay? And so this is basically where these fluids we are talking about. And of course, the spirits, they have action on the fluids, okay? We know already that our spiritual body is more or less dense depending on our degree of evolution. Elevated spirits, they have a very subtle, very low density and high luminous spiritual body, whilst spirits which are at the beginning of the evolution, they have a more dense spiritual body. At the point that these spirits which are less evolved cannot even see or perceive the higher spirits, in the same way that we as incarnated with our material eyes cannot see even the low evolved spirits. Okay, so there is how to say, you see this an infinite number of different densities and different transformation of the universal cosmic fluids. Now, since we incarnated have a perispirit formed out of this fluid, we have also a spirit, okay? When we have some illness, for instance, we go to healing, what is happening? You see, the people, like Jesus did 2,000 years ago, are just putting the hands without touching you. What are they doing when they are doing that? Putting the hands associated with the power of the will and of the thought is acting on the fluid. So it's acting a little bit like a pump, which is pumping some fluid and directing on the person in order to help them, or even to disperse, when it's a dispersive healing, to disperse the how to say, loaded or wrong or bad fluids, vitiated fluid, as you described at the beginning, Stevan, from the person, and trying to replace them by better fluid. And this has effects which are proven. So it is really helping a lot in the recovery of the health of the person which is beneficiating by the healing. Okay. The doctors also in the video have explained it. They more and more now enter in this field of fluids, in this integral dimension of the human being, considering not only the material body treated by allopathy and drugs and so on, or homeopathy even, but they go also more to the cause of the most of the illnesses, which are in the spiritual body, and that can be treated through these fluids. So this is what I would say just to introduce, and I think I will stop here in order to let my dear colleagues to complement the subject of how the spirits are acting on those fluids. So thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you, Charles. And Charles, I think we have a question here,
Yes.
which is part of your explanation from Camille. And the question is, what is the difference between fluids and magnetism, and how do these relate to one another?
Very briefly, I think that Camille is talking about magnetism, it is not the magnet itself, the material magnetism or magnetic field. He is talking about the magnetism as introduced by Anton Mesmer, or also called mesmerism. Okay, so what Mesmer has studied, and a lot of others have continued afterwards, and can even make some pictures showing the fluids and so on. Some persons, I think everyone can do it, but some person can do it at a higher degree. It means emit this magnetic fluid. This is human magnetism, also through the power of thoughts and of will. Okay, so it is not tangible in the normal state, albeit it can be somehow measured, or it is acting onto the photographic chemicals, or sometimes through the corona effect in the Kirlian photography or whatever. Okay, so this type of fluid, which is closer to the human being, to our material state, is the so-called magnetism fluid. But Kardec is explaining that there are two other forms. The first one we talked is the magnetizer, even alone, can emit some fluids and help someone in front of him. Okay. Then there can be the spirits in the spiritual world can also act on fluids in the spiritual world and direct them to a person in order to heal them without the intervention of any human. Okay, any other human. And the third form is a little bit a mix between both. So the healer is somehow calling some spirits, some benefactors, in order to helping, and these spirits will then use this person to bring some fluid and direct through the person, maybe transform it through or mix it even with the magnetic fluid of the person, thus having the magnetizer and assisted by a spirit, both together helping a person. So these are the three types of fluids. So there is no real fundamental difference out of the fact that the magnetism is generally can be emitted by the magnetizer alone without the assistance of a spirit, whilst in the spirit groups there is this more spiritual assisted healing, let's say so.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. Thank you. My dear Gibbons, Camille also has a question here, and it's kind of connected with the question I'm going to ask you. My question to you is, what are the effects of these fluids on our material and spiritual body, for the spirit? And Camille, she's asking here, since different worlds have different types of perispirit, do we drop perispirits altogether when we discarnate, or keep it while attached to a particular world even when we are not in? So I think both.
Keep it attached to. Okay, wow. Hello? Did you say something? I can't hear you.
It's okay, go ahead.
Well, there are two things. I think first, I would like to quote something from Andrea Luiz from Evolution into Worlds about the cosmic fluid, which is sort of an explanation beyond the Spirit's book, which comes to the same. And he says that the cosmic fluid is a divine plasma, the aspiration of the Creator, or the nervous force of the Almighty. In this primordial element vibrates and leaves constellations and suns, worlds and beings like fish in an ocean. I think this is exactly what the Spirit's book says, because said you have the three elements in the universe, which spirit, matter, and God above all. And this forms universal trinity. That's the question 27 in the Spirit's book. And this fluid, it's something that is between spirit and matter, because matter is so gross, it cannot move by itself. So through the will of the Spirit, who wills it, this fluid comes in between spirit and matter, although it is also a type of matter. But how he says that they have this some properties of it that is different from itself. So I think when we form the influence of it, I mean, Charles sort of mentioned it as well, because those fluids also is the vehicle for thought. Is our thoughts, it's moved through space and time by those fluids. And I think everything that there exists in the universe is product of this universal fluid, which I think that there was something as well that somebody, I don't know if it's Camille or other, who said about hydrogen, oxygen, all the elements in the universe are formed by this universal fluid, which the Spirits call the primitive fluid. And he says, they say that's one primitive element. The bodies that we regard as simple is not elementary. They are transformations of this primitive matter. So everything in the universe is created by this fluid in different proportions, different manners in which they come together. Say, for instance, water. Water is two elements of hydrogen with one of oxygen to form water. That's life itself for all of us. But if you put 2 oxygen, it becomes sulfuric acid, which can kill us, So it's all to do with how the elements come together and how everything is created from this primitive element. And so is our bodies. So that's why there is a great influence in our bodies. And whether we are incarnate or discarnate, we have this is influenced by us. I think Charles was mentioning as well the question of healing. I think that when we pass this energy, we become like an intermediary for this healing that comes through us. So this affects our body very, very much. And how this is connected, and these fluids are connected, and our thoughts are moved by them. When a person has really good thoughts, you wish something really well to someone, you can send these thoughts, and the person will feel good, will feel the love that we send to them. But when it's negative thoughts of anger or jealousy or hatred or anything, the person will also feel bad, because they will feel these energies, because our thoughts can transform this energy into good or bad. And that's why it's so important for us to, whenever we have a negative thought, to try to change it, to try to transform it into something good. And I think one of the things, like Jesus said something, that when you think, when he was commenting in one of the commandments, he said, when you think of desiring someone, you already sinning with that person. And it seemed so simplistic the way he said it. But once you start about this, the fluids and how your thoughts connected with it, we already created something with that thought. So that's very, very important, how the influence of this in our bodies can, negative thoughts can cause diseases, can cause depression, can cause people to behave in a really bad way, because everything is influenced, and we change this. We have the power to change these fluids into something really good or really bad. I think the question of the perispirit, he says here, every world, every planet has a different perispirit for the beings that live in those. And the perispirit is formed by the elements of that planet. So we'll have a spiritual body that is connected to that planet, like we have a spiritual body that's connected to the earth and to connect to a physical body. And of course, I think he says, do you live? I think he mentioned that, can you, if you are attached to that, yes, we are attached to that perispirit while we live in that planet. If for any reason we, if we progress spiritually, or if we don't do anything and we're going to go back to a different planet, the perispirit will change. We are connected to that while we're still there. If we move up, or if we are sent back to a planet that is still very backward, then our perispirit will be changed to live in that world. And as the spirit progresses spiritually, as they evolve, this perispirit becoming more and more subtle, almost to non-existent. Is when someone becomes pure light, really, and when the spirit is very, very, very well evolved. So I don't know if that answered the questions, but we attached to the perispirits, attached to that while we are in that planet. And if we reincarnate in another planet, it will change to live in that planet. And as we progress and evolve, the perispirits become more subtle. And if we go to more advanced worlds, even more, until almost disappears. That's what I understand. But I think everything to do with this matter. I've made some notes here. I'd like to read very quickly, because I think it is very important that the spirits teach us in the Spirit's book. He said, we form the spirit and matter, and these fluids between matter, and through the will of the Spirit, that's how the physical, the matter can actually move through this fluid. And he says, but the whole material element, it must be added universal fluid, which plays a part of the intermediary between spirit and matter, because matter being too gross for the spirit to be able to act directly upon it. However, it's important, this fluid may be also classed as forming part of a material element. So this fluid, this is a type of matter, but he says also that it has a distinguishing from that element by certain properties of its own. So there are certain properties in this type of matter that forms this fluid that's very its own and is differentiated from others. And it says the intermediary between spirit and matter, and it is the fluid that is susceptible to be made through its innumerable combinations with matter under the directing action of the spirit to produce the infinite variety of things which we still know but little about. So even now we still know very, very little. I mean, at the time of Kardec, I don't know how many people could, besides Kardec, could actually understand the Spirit's book. And we still have problem in understanding it now. It's for the future, really. But so everything is created from the varieties or the way the elements come together to produce whatever matter it is in other places. So this universal primitive or elementary fluid, being the agent employed by spirit in acting upon matter, is the principle without which matter would remain forever in a state of division and would not acquire the properties of a state of ponderability. So like electric, magnetic fluid, so modifications of the universal fluid. And I think Charles already talked about that. So I think for us to understand, like Andrea Luis says, we live within this like fishes in an ocean. And I think the explanation here, it's very, because, matter, the molecules are all separated. And it's all this attraction that they become vulnerable. I mean, science, physics know that. And that's where it comes from. So it's a very good understanding. This is books to study and study and study and study some more to be able to grasp a little bit more of what the spirits were teaching us. Thank you.
Thank you, my dear. Yes, you were very spot on. Just to say here to Marco, as more as evolved the spirit, better the spirit handles the fluids. Better knowledge they will have, better moral values the spirit is gathering. So this is going to evolve. So we need to start to working today in order to have our chance. And now I put on fire our friend Rafael Caldas. My friend, I had an easy question for you.
Good.
During the healing, what is a good way to transmit and to receive a fluid?
Okay. Let me try to answer that. So I think the Charles and Silvia mentioned many things that would give us the reason behind why healing works, right? If we think about everything that they were talking about in terms of fluid and how the fluids will carry the specific characteristics that we give to them through our thought, through our will. Therefore, we can give them like the magnetic, I guess, power, let's say, that will leave us and reach someone else, and vice versa, will leave someone else and reach us. So if we think about fluids that we are immersed in, carries our thoughts towards people around us. And we on our side, we work like antennas where we are attracting and reading, receiving these different types of ideas, energies, or fluids. And then we on our side, we can either be receptive, we can reject it, we can absorb them, we can duck. So when you're talking about healing specifically, or the laying on of hands or so on, what is happening in that moment? In that moment, I have somebody who has more of a magnetizers, let's say, abilities, or knows about how those things work. And in that specific moment, is trying to direct specific, healthy, good, elevating enlightening, etc. thoughts that will transform itself into fluidic matter, magnetic fluids, and direct that to a person. So in the same way that Charles was talking about different experiments that were done in the past and how magnetism was studied and proved, during healing, we are also manipulating that fluid using our magnetism with the help of spirits to direct that to a specific end, to a specific goal. So this is not something new, right? This is something that is being going around forever. This is not something that we discovered now. No, this is just part of how life works, and how life works since forever. And we keep going on with the same rules. I brought a couple of paragraphs from 2 books, just so I can base myself upon something. It's not just me saying. I actually might be able to share this quickly. Let me see if it's going to work. There you go. Stevan, can you put that in? Perfect. Thank you. So this one, let's read together, right? This is from the book Into the Unseen from Leon Denis, and it's chapter 15. The intention to alleviate, to cure, we said, lends to the magnetic fluid healing properties. The medicine for our sickness is within ourselves. A good and healthy person can act upon weak and suffering ones, regenerate them by their blow, by their imposition of hands, or even objects impregnated with their energy. More frequently, they act by the laying on of hands. These treatments must be followed on regularly with renovated sessions every day until complete cure. So here we already see the connection from what Charles and Silvia were talking to us. So Silvia was mentioning even that at a molecular level, we are all connected because in the end, we are made of the same, our bodies and our composition is made of the same principle, right? The same type of raw matter, let's say. And on a different book, another old friend goes on to tell us something else as well. Go even further. So now this is from, let me hide this. This is from Andrea Luiz in the realms of mediumship. The laying on of hands or healing. It is a transfer of energy changing the cellular environment. In the magnetic assistance, the spiritual resources interconnect between emission and reception, helping the person in need so they can help themselves. So I'm going to just draw our attention here to interconnect between emission and reception. Keep that in mind. Then he goes on and says, acting at a cellular level, it provides new energy support to cells, facilitating the circulation of blood, the migration of defense cells to fight infections, and helping the healing process where needed. It facilitates internal secretions, particularly hormonal ones, rebalancing the organism as a whole. So everything that Silvia was mentioning about the formation of matter, we just go another level here based on what Andrea Luiz is saying. If we have the effect of thought and of intention upon matter, and we can absorb or repel that, and we can send that as well, that energy that has specific characteristics, specific elements associated to them, qualities are linked to them, they can be absorbed by us. Of course, if they are absorbed by us, they will have an effect on our whole body. When we're talking about healing, we're talking about our physical body as well. Therefore, Andrea Luiz is telling us how that positive energy can be absorbed and in which level it affects our healing process. Why I brought our attention to the phrase, the interconnect between emission and reception. Because here I think is more to your question, Stevan. How do we make sure that we are exchanging good energy? How do we make the most of the healing process or treatment that you're going to? There must be an element of connection. The medium on its own, with the help of the spirits, will direct thought, will have all of the intention in terms of bring to this person what they need so they can find a rebalance, so they can have the energy necessary to fight whatever they're going through, to heal, to have the strength to go through whatever they need to go through, and so on. So that medium is sending all of the good intentions, all of that magnetized fluids towards the person. If the person, on the other hand, is just there, but it's not at the same time thinking about, thank you for giving me this, allow me to absorb this energy, may this energy be what I need in terms of strength, in terms of motivation, re-energizing resources, and so on. Be thankful for the opportunity of being there. Then you will not reach the total potential of that exchange. So there needs to be those two, right? And to support myself even further in this one, I'm going to bring a final slide here, because something that we read a lot when we talk about the gospel according to Spiritism and so on, and in all the books, is when you think of Jesus and his ability of curing, his ability of healing. And he says himself that the people themselves, they were the ones that healed themselves. Even though they were there and they touched Jesus and so on, and they attributed their healing to Jesus, Jesus says, it is your faith who healed you, who healed is what you needed. And I'm going to bring here a passage from Luke, chapter 6. And the people all tried to touch him because power was coming from him and healing them all. To which Jesus replied in another passage, you healed yourself. So I think that is the main key, right? When we are talking about treatment, when we talk about healing, when we talk about laying on position of hands, the person receiving that needs to also change their mind, change their energy, open up so they can receive and absorb all of the benefits that are being offered in the treatment. Before I close, I have a quick passage that I was watching a lecture, a talk this week, and somebody mentioned a passage from Francisco Cândido Xavier, Chico Xavier, that there was a specific moment. Chico Xavier was also a known medium for his healing skills. Let's say skills is not the right word. Anyways, but characteristics and
abilities.
Abilities. Thank you, Silvia. Abilities. But Chico Xavier had his job. He needed to work every day, and he had long shifts to cover. He was not well off, so he needed to provide for himself with the basic stuff. So his days, his life was pretty much when he was in this spiritist center working. If he was not there, he was at his sleep, and he was at his official work where he was receiving his salary to maintain his life. There was this one time where this lady was looking for him to receive from him a healing session, a healing laying on of hands. And she tried to go to his house. He wasn't there. He was at work. She tried to go to work. He couldn't see her. Maybe he was already out. So she did that a couple of times, just kind of going after him, and she couldn't find him. After a few days of that back and forth, she finally got hold of him. She got to him and she slapped him in the face, saying, how dare you? Who do you think you are, making me go back and forth trying to chase you and find you? To which, of course, he was not waiting, but he was not expecting that. He was quite surprised. And then she demanded of him, you do a healing session for me now. Chico Xavier, of course, which was quite calm and with control of his emotions, he turned to Emmanuel, his mentor, and said, Emmanuel, look, I'm not angry about her or with her, but I know that for me to do a healing session, I need to be in a better mental and emotional state towards this person. To which Emmanuel said, you are right. If you try to do any healing session on her now, there will be no effect. So Emmanuel suggests to him, go and talk to her first. So he then went on, and as a way of a process of getting over that moment, restarting or resetting his thoughts and his emotions, he started talking to her to understand what was going on and so on. And through that conversation, before he did the healing process, he realized that she wasn't alone. She had a spiritual companion with her, and there was an influence of that spiritual companion on her that made her do that slap on his face. And then after some conversation, they were all crying. And then anyways, they recovered, and then she was in a better state to give the healing, and then she received the energy influx that she needed. Why am I telling this anecdote? Because the healing is only as good as the right intention, preparation, mental state, energy levels, and etc. of the medium and of the person receiving the healing. That's it.
That's a good story, isn't it, Rafael? I always
Yeah.
Stevan,
Yeah.
there is a question by Camille here.
Yes.
About the sensation of the energy, if it can be felt by the person sending and the person receive it. I think the person that you send the thing will feel it, and the person who's sending feels it, and the person who receives it also feels it. Because when you're sending thoughts of love, and healing and everything, like Rafael was explaining, the person has a sense of good well-being coming towards them. They might even think of the person who actually sending them, if they know who it is. They have that sense of well-being feeling them. I think everyone must have this experience. Sometimes you think about someone and you have this like a kind of joy that comes on you, and that's when the person's receiving a good thought, someone thinking positive and sending them lots of vibrations of goodness and love. And the person who sends it also feels, because whenever you emanate something good inside of you, it makes you feel good, makes you feel well and happy. So I think this works both ways. The person who sends and the person who receives feels it. I think what Rafael was saying and what Charles explained as well really says, because we have to remember that thoughts are carried by the fluids. So if we are sending good fluids, good thoughts, means that we are sending good vibrations. The explanation of what Rafael was saying about Jesus saying, your faith cured you, because the person feel that if they came near him, if they touched him, they would be cured. And whenever he asked, Jesus would always ask, what do you want me to do for you? He never would go there and because he probably could, because he knew, but he would always ask, what do you want from me? And I think those vibrations, we are creating it, we are changing to good things, and the fluids are carrying our thoughts. So it's it's quite solid, and it's quite a material, the sending of it, so you can receive it as well.
Yeah, perfect, Silvia. Thank you. Yeah. So we still have like 5 minutes. Let's see if we have anything here. We answered that question. Oh, there is a question here from Elio. Charles, Uh, Good night. What is the Spiritism understanding of the conscient projection of consciousness and how it could be used as a tool to understand the universal fluid?
I think conscient projection of consciousness and how it could be used as a tool to understand the universal fluids. Yes, so I told that and also Raphael and Silvia, that the thought and the will has an action on the fluids. Okay, so I don't know if this is what Helio means as a conscient projection of consciousness. Okay, how could it be? How it could be used as a tool to understand the universal fluids? Yes, so definitively the science has to progress in the investigation of towards the universal cosmic fluid. Okay, we are studying particles, quantum physics, solid mechanics, also astronomy now with James Webb and so on. The current paradigm is needing to assume that 96% or maybe even a little bit more of the energy which exists in the universe is not tangible. That we see only very few percent of what exists in the universe. So this is something that I have to say an anomaly in the paradigm. Okay, if we don't know what 96% of the universe is, really we have to go and to investigate deeper. And of course, it's not very easy. This change of paradigm is facing a lot of resistance because it needs this change of paradigm to admit that the matter or exists in other forms that are not tangible in the normal state for us. So this famous spiritual matter or semi-matter or these spiritual fluids or this less dense transformation or condensation of the universal cosmic fluid. All this is largely, how to say, under-investigated by today's science. And definitively, it shall progress. To answer maybe Elio's question is, there are some studies, for instance, in the medical area, and the International Spiritist Medical Association has made a lot of communications in writing or also conferences about this, for instance, showing the effect of some people prayers, for instance, in double-blind methodology and protocols which are very, very elaborated, scientifically speaking, showing that, for instance, if you have 100 children which are ill in an hospital, the one for which prayer has been made, without in double blind, I mean, the children didn't know who was praying or if someone was praying for him or not, and the prayers did not know for which children they were praying. So in this double blind protocol, showing that there is an effect, that it works. So, okay, so there is an effect. So what is the cause? Where does this emission of thoughts, which is a prayer, go through in order to touch those children or those persons in a way that it's showing statistically valid results on the health recovery. So it's an example of how the science is today slowly but surely entering in this field. And I think we need also the spirits have come to Kardec. They have told, he talk about fluid, because there was, how to say, even we when we use the word fluid, we have to explain the context of the understanding of this word at that time, in order to understand what Kardec and the spirit meant through that. So today there is a full concept to be done about this universal cosmic fluid and his transformation, connecting to the concept we have today of the material world.
I think that there's one thing here as well. I think going to what Charles was saying, the question that Camille had asked, he said physically, he meant if the person felt physically. If you sense something in your body, a sense of well-being, things change. The adrenaline, the endorphins in your body is being changed. So it is physical. You feel physically, and exactly what Charles was saying. And there are many more examples. I think Stanford University did a research about people receiving healing. Some knew they were doing it, and others, none of them knew who was receiving, but some did and some didn't. And the ones who had received the healing got better from something. And so it's physical. Camille, it is physical. A sense of well-being means that the chemistry in your body changed. So you feel that it's important. I think what Elio said as well is a projection of consciousness out of the body experiences.
Out of body experiences, yes. So now I understand better the questions. Thank you, Elio. Sorry for my misunderstanding at the beginning. The difficulty of it, very quickly, because we are running out of time, is somebody makes an out-of-body experience, or somebody makes a near-death experience or something similar, coming back and then explaining what he perceived, what he saw, and so on. Okay, so it's a personal testimony or opinion that nobody, or it's very difficult to verify if there are some, what the person has told is true. So one verification is when all the person independently are telling the same thing. So that's Raymond Moody's big add-on on the subject. And the second thing, there are some experiences done in Switzerland, for instance, where one person has the capacity to go out of his body, to go to the next room and to look what is in a box that he ignores totally, then to come back and to describe what was in the box. Okay, so this is something tangible that can be verified.
Yeah.
So those experiences are
book,
already
isn't it,
ongoing.
Charles?
Sorry?
And is it in the Medium's book? Is the astral travel is in the Medium's book?
Yes.
And we could maybe have a talk about this, because this is serious business in many countries, America and Russia, where they use people who are able to travel and to do things. I think just one point very, very quickly, because I know we finished. I think what we call universal fluid is what science now calls dark energy and black matter, and that they are beginning to study, and they actually have found something that was in the Spirit's book 160 years before they actually discovered it. So that's where it is, universal fluid, the same.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so I knew it. 1 hour is going to be less.
It's a big subject.
Short time.
Yeah.
So let me go here to the slides. So thank you everybody for your collaboration, for your comments. Apology to we skip to say some comments here, but the time here is very tight. So let me go here. So next week we are celebrating 2 years of non-stop show here every Wednesday with you
To
guys.
me too.
So next week, spreading spiritism all over the world, and we will have the full team, and our dear friend Vanessa from Cardiac Radio will be with us as well. So don't miss it. Next to Wednesday, 1st of February 2023, 9 p.m. And let me see. That is a free study group on self-discovery based on spiritist psychology. This study is going to be held on Zoom, and we will start on already started on the 8th of January, so we still have time to join the group. It's every fortnightly Sundays. Here are the schedule, and any contact, please reach out to our friend Fabricio. Also, not this Sunday, but the following Sunday, we will have the second talk about Gabriel Delan with our friend Alexandre Caldini, and the topic is reincarnation. On the between 2nd and 12th of February, we will have a mediumistic workshop and mediumistic painting with our friend Florence Anton in several locations in the UK, some in London, some outside of London. So I think 2 out of these sessions will be in English, Silvia.
Yes, I'll be the interpreter there. It's the one of the British Association of Spiritualism, and the one in Kingston.
Yeah, so please, if you want to join, mark the date and which place is close to your home. Okay. Also, on the 18th of March, we will have a Children and Youth Education Summit. This is formed by the educators in London. The topic is challenges and opportunities in youth and children's spiritist education. More details to come. Also, we still have our study of the book No Solar with Guilherme Dias every other Tuesday. Time to talk with Rafael and Guilherme. Rafael is here today with us. Conversations on mediumship. And every Saturday, we do have the Mediums book course with Rafael, with Guilherme, Munir, and Charles. Oof. That's it. So I want to say thank you, everybody. Thank you. Wish you all a wonderful rest of the week. Thank you, Rafael, for making yourself available to join us today.
My pleasure.
Merci, Charles. Thank you, my dear Gibbons. I wish you all a wonderful night and rest of the week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
Bye.
Ciao.
God bless. Bye-bye.